What's up, guys? Podcast number 13. This episode, we will talk about the ideal human diet. Something that I've been really thinking about and practicing and researching for the last like 10 years, basically. So, yeah, like and subscribe, please, if you find value here. Click the link below in the description if you want to grab the full kettlebell program that also has steel mace movements, full nutrition program, full access to the Discord. Hop in, people. But anyways, let's just jump right into it. So, just commenting over the first 15 minutes of a 60-minute long kettlebell workout. So I'm just kind of moving through some random flows and sequences to get going here. But the ideal human diet. So this is a really heavy topic, of course, and I'm making a bold claim saying the ideal human diet. Do I know it? Yes, I think I do, and I'll explain myself. Do I think it's the same for everybody? Probably not, but I think fundamentally it is. So, I've been thinking about the diet for a long time, guys, not just for abs and for looks, but at a certain point in college, I was really starting to become exposed to the fact that diet had a lot to do with your mentality, your mindset, not your mindset necessarily, but like how your mind works, like ADHD and foggy headedness and just little things like that. Like you just start to realize like nutrition is much more than, looking a certain way. It's your health. It's the fundamental basis of your health. And I was going through a time where I didn't feel fully healthy. I was just going through certain things and had certain skin things come up and just a lot of, you know, a sickness that lasted for a long time and joint pain and stuff like that and ADHD symptoms, just inability to focus, doing stupid things. Like I was of course a young man finding myself, but something was telling me that, you know, there's something off with the diet. So I'm just going to tell you guys my journey and kind of how I've come to what I eat now today and my reasoning behind doing so. So, in college I studied neuroscience. I say that just to give some sort of credibility to myself that I'm not a complete like idiot, right? Like I know some of the basics. Like there's a lot to go into, but I was studying neuroscience and that's kind of the time that I really got into it was when I got into the more advanced courses like biochemistry and stuff like that, and everything started to click. So let's just go back to that. So we'll go to my junior year in college, and I've talked about this before, guys, but I haven't really talked about how I'm eating currently because it's changing always. I'm always like I like to think evolving, right? So I'll kind of get to where I'm at now today. So starting way back then, I started to read a lot of books like The Grain Brain, and some other books by that similar doctor author who wrote a lot about ADHD and other symptoms like that, and just a lot of the diseases that people suffer from today too, like just diabetes, cancer, stuff like that, and just attributing a lot of these problems to the diet itself, and in particular carbs and sugar, right? Like grains, carbs, sugar. That those seem to be the biggest problem. So I was really exposed to a lot of that literature, if you will. And then I also became exposed to fasting. And I can't tell you exactly how, but just I just gravitated toward it. I was just looking for different ways to, I guess, heal myself. My biggest problem back then was like my shoulder problem. This was like years and years ago, like 6, 7 years ago, before I had shoulder surgery. It was just, I was losing all my muscle. It was just a bad time. And, I was just looking into all of this different stuff. So when I got into fasting, or when I got exposed to fasting, rather, I was taking biochemistry. That's probably my third year in college, second, third year, and it made a lot of sense, logically, like why it would be good for you evolutionarily, the fact that we just never had access to an abundance of food. So why would our physiology, if we haven't like genetically changed as humans, as Homo sapiens in the time period that we've been Homo sapiens, why is it okay to eat in such abundance and such regularity? It makes logical sense that our system is almost designed to eat, to feast, and to fast, right? Or else we would not have made it as far as we would have as a species. It's just, and it's not only humans, guys. Like if you watch other like National Geographic shows and stuff like that. It's actually really interesting. I was watching this show on Netflix, forgot what it's called, but this particular episode was on cheetahs. And this one cheetah hadn't eaten for like 3 days. Her like three cubs hadn't eaten either, and the commentators like they need to find food or the cubs will soon die. And it's just like this is just like a regular occurrence for them, going days without eating, and their whole life is hunting and finding that food. That was us. So now we're in a situation where we don't have to do that anymore at all. So it's like we have this deep rooted genetic kind of capability and not only capability but like predisposition, almost like pre-wiring to live this lifestyle of survival, right? And so now that we don't have to worry about survival, we we're too comfortable in a sense. So it's like we're not really satisfying the we're not quenching the thirst that our like deep-rooted genetics have, and in that way we develop these problems like joint pain, like um, diabetes, foggy headedness, all the stuff that we complain about today, right? So, and that's just scratching the surface. So, going even a little bit farther, I got into the carnivore diet. And again, this was during when I was studying this stuff in school. So, it made a lot of sense to me, but I didn't jump into it. It's a very extreme thing, right? So, I had been dwelling on the carnivore diet for about 2.5 years until finally one day, 2.5 years, and this is a super long story short, I was just sick of being bloated. I sick of it. I remember one Sunday I was just like, this is it. I'm going carnivore. I'm just going to try this. It makes a lot of sense. Fast forward like 30 days later, it was the best I've ever felt in my life. And I stayed on it for 60 days. But I still, it's not complete in my opinion. I think everybody needs to do it because what it did for me is life changing. It's almost like it's even more grand than a psychedelic experience. It's a huge project that you place yourself through, and you want to do it for at least 30 days. But what this does is it completely rewires your system, and you stop craving certain foods. Ever since that stint I did, I've never craved sugar or unhealthy foods the same way ever again. And I grew up on that stuff, so it completely just redoes your gut microbiome. It switches up your hormonal system. It epigenetically starts to change you. So in this way, it's super powerful life hack. But I knew it wasn't sustainable, so that's the problem. So that's why that is not the ideal human diet, at least not for me or for most people. But a lot of people actually that are on the diet thrive. And I think it might be something that I switched to in my older age, just to enjoy the last years as vitally as possible. And maybe I even might switch back to it sooner. Who knows? Maybe it is the ideal human diet. I'm not, I'm still speculating on all this, but when I say ideal, I think sustainability is a huge aspect. And I think asking most people to, you know, adhere to a strict carnivore diet is asking a little too much. So, what have I done it to make it a little bit more palatable, if you will? Well, I've gone through a lot of things over the past, let's say, 3 years. So it was 3 years ago that I did the carnivore diet, and over the last 3 years, the way I've been eating has just completely changed from before the carnivore diet. Like I eat way more meat now, which is something I never did before. Because first of all, society makes you think that meat is unhealthy, and I grew up in, my dad's Indian, so mostly vegetarian, but my mom would cook meat, but steak and stuff like that were never a big thing in my house, and I was never a fan. So actually going on the carnivore diet was extremely difficult for me at first because I just couldn't eat enough. I couldn't stomach the meat. But as I did it longer, obviously you increase your capability to stomach meat and your craving for protein, which is what you want. You want to crave meat. That is what you want to crave. That is healthy. If you crave meat, that is extremely healthy. But the point that I was in, I was craving always sugar and carbs. I always had to have carbs. So cutting carbs out was just the biggest life-changing thing to me because you you realize that most of the carbs that we eat are processed. They're processed or they're refined. They're tampered with by humans. So just to cut to the chase here, my long story short, and I've experimented over the past 3 years with with rice, like a more like vertical diet. If you guys want to look into that, type in vertical diet. It's also a really good diet, but in my opinion, it's also too restrict. All these diets are very restrictive, right? So what I've gotten to the point, my again, when I think about all this stuff, I look at studies, I listen to experts and stuff like that, guys, but it's also just really logical. So my logical mind, you know what it tells me? It tells me that if nature made us, right? And nature also made a whole host of food like fruits, nuts, meat, eggs, vegetables. These are all things that like we all have DNA. We're all from the same cut from the same cloth, if you will, which is the cloth of nature's intelligence and nature's intelligent design. Call it nature, call it God, whatever you want. But you get it, right? It's organic life. That's where I get organic foods, organic whole foods. Not to sound so cliche, but that's really what it is. But you got to think of it. I'm thinking of it from this like this logical, biological perspective of these are the foods we are clearly meant to eat. You know, so I think the vegans, the carnivores, all these guys are wrong. We're omnivores. It is it makes the most sense, guys. That's how we evolved. We evolved to ultimately be the most like efficient survival mechanism, like machine. We are the best at surviving, the species. And I strongly believe a huge reason for that is our wide diversity of like palatable foods. Like, we can eat we're more suited to eat fruits and vegetables, for example, than like dogs and cats are, you know? But we're also more suited to eat meat and eggs and dairy than monkeys are, right? Because monkeys live off a lot of fruit and grass and things like that. But their digestive systems are completely different. So let's not even get into all that scientific stuff. But I'm just saying it at least makes the most sense to cut anything out that is not designed by nature's intelligence. So even rice, even oatmeal, anything, guys, that is refined or processed or tampered with, to use the most basic form of the sense, tampered with by humans, I think you should stay away from it. You know, I think the lesser of the evils obviously are like things like rice and super old grains like that, like barley and things that like the Spartans used to eat. Like I'm sure that's fine, obviously, but I think ideally you'll feel your most healthy when you cut everything out except that from nature. So what my diet has become, and this is where it might vary person to person, but I think that this is a really good template for literally anybody who, unless you have some weird food allergies, this should work for anybody. This is just natural. 1 pound of meat a day, 2 to 4 eggs, depending on how hungry you are. And you can mix all that together. That's one meal. You don't have to eat this in the same order. I'm just naming these randomly. I'm actually naming it in order of like significance of what you should make sure you get into your body. 1 pound of meat a day, 2 to 4 eggs, maybe some cheese, some kimchi to add to that, because kimchi has a lot of probiotics, anti-cancer, and it kind of gives you that vegetable that you might need. That's the only vegetable I eat. That, almond butter, honey, nuts, fruit. That's it. That's all you need. That's all I eat. And it's amazing. So for me, the pound of meat a day and the meat and eggs are absolutely crucial for building muscle, for boosting testosterone, for giving you all the nutrients that you as a human need. And then these other things, I feel like perfectly complement, what I would say the carnivore diet. So it's like the carnivore diet is like the centerpiece of my diet, but everything else is like supplemental. Like the nuts provide so many good, nutrients and fiber and help you clean your system out and really good against preventing cancer. Fruit, obviously all these foods have so much like benefits and nutrients. So when you cut everything out besides these highly nutritious foods designed by nature that are perfectly meant for your body to digest and assimilate with, I believe like so many problems will go away. Is it worth going on a super strict carnivore diet? I think so. Do it for 30 days and reset your system, then start to add fruit back, start to add certain nuts back, and find out what jives with your system. But that's it for this week, guys. Peace out.